Welcome, listeners, to this Speaking from Our Hearts podcast episode, where in this particular focus is around spiritual beings having human challenges. A fascinating conversation, no doubt. And to join me in this is a lady called Halina Goldstein from Denmark. So, Halina, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Okay.
Exciting topic.
Yes. Where do we start with this, Halina? Spiritual beings having human challenges. Let's draw a line in the sand and start. So we've got to start somewhere. Anyway.
Yes. Well, the first thought that comes to mind is that actually, throughout my work with people that have been on a spiritual journey for quite a while, which typically are my clients are like that. What I've seen again and again for years and years is that most of us embark on the spiritual journey because of challenges we experience on our human journey. And what typically happens initially is that we kind of try to, to say it very black and white kind of way, is we kind of try to get away from those human challenges and try to find escape or to find peace on the spiritual journey. And that is very natural, very understandable. Most of us have been through tremendous challenges. So we kind of almost seek escape in the spiritual realm. And that works for a little while, but what happens sooner or later is that we are, of course, called to look at the challenges that we have brought with us into the spiritual journey, the human challenges. And more often than not, this is what the work is. And the spiritual expansion really cannot take place unless we address those human challenges with love, with light, and address them.
Yeah, yes, I understand. I understand that. And addressing them, as I'm constantly reminded, Halina, by guests and from my own experiences, it's an ever cultivating process, isn't it? It's I use the metaphor of having growing beautiful flowers in the garden, but we've constantly got to be aware of these weeds that fly around and take root and can strangle if we're not careful, because we are human beings first and foremost, or maybe not first and foremost. And this is the kind of chicken and egg, the yin and the yang, and this whole kind of mixed ball of this beautiful experience called life. For me, Halina, and I absolutely agree as the foundation, because usually that leverage to get away from pain and suffering takes us, right, okay, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to go, and we go to the complete opposite, don't we?
We tend to, and it's so natural, because there has been so much pain, and all of a sudden we see the love, we see the opportunity to connect with something else. So there's nothing wrong about it. It's the natural, the way things evolve is that we first seek escape, and then we go back and then take a look at the garden, as you say. And yes, there is very much the whole question about who am I? Am I this human being having a spiritual experience, or is it the other way around? What is what becomes a big question, and even what is flowers and what is weeds, because in our human experiences there is a very strong tendency to discern between what's good, what's bad, what's flowers, what's weed, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. From a spiritual perspective, it doesn't look like that. There it actually looks like nature looks. If you go outside the garden and into nature, there's no such thing as weeds. There are just different plants.
Absolutely.
And they live together and they collaborate, so to speak, and enhance each other's growth or prevent each other's growth, and that is meaningful too. But there's this whole ecology And from a spiritual perspective, perhaps the key to our human challenges is begin to see our garden as part of nature, and to look at things differently, and to address the challenges we have not as something bad or something wrong, but as challenges, as an invitation to a bigger perspective and a more loving perspective.
Absolutely. And from that, to continue that example, that metaphor that we've now used about the flowers and the weeds, that brings in the whole concept of duality, doesn't it? And to a certain degree, the perception and the judgment that goes with that, and all the things that I think it's fair to say, Halina, when we first go on the journey, we read about, don't get embroiled in judgment, and don't do this, and you should do that. And it almost creates this kind of black and white. Oh, that's the ideal spiritual world, and that's my real world. And it's like, there's this massive gap in between. It's like, how do I bridge that? Why would I want to bridge it? That's a big question, isn't it? Why would I even want to bridge it, other than that reaction to get away from pain and suffering? And I suppose that journey and that leverage for that journey, Halina, is different for every single one of us.
Yes, that is so very true, and the journey is different at different stages of it. The thing that is important to have in our minds, I think, is that we do bring the challenges we experience in our life into the spiritual journey. And one of the greatest pains and greatest challenges is how we have been judged as children, even as babies. Most of us receive this messages that this part of us is wrong and that part of us is wrong. It is tremendously painful to live with that. So we have been brought into and brought up as if separation and duality is real, and it is very meaningful that it happens this way. But there comes a time when it's time to dissolve it. So yes, in the beginning, it's like, why would I, as you said, why would I even want to bridge that? And the only reason why I would want to bridge that is because this is the only possible resolution to pain. Love is the only possible resolution to pain. Love is the only possible resolution to separation. And for love, everything is love. For love, nothing is wrong, right? So
absolutely,
that could be a reason to bridge it. But it's in no way as simple. It is, in a sense, it's simple. Love isn't complicated, but it isn't simple because we are complex beings, and there's so much baggage for so many of us. So it does take time, and it's totally fine that it does take time, because life is meant to take time and to be a challenge, and it is meant for us to evolve through it. So nothing is wrong in that. It's just how it happens.
And I think everything that we've spoke about thus far, Halina, in these first few minutes can be summed up, I feel, one simple word. And it's not simple, but it's a simple word: awareness. Where are we at any one given moment in time with what's going off around us, with what, more importantly, what do we feel inside of us? But I think initially we start that path by observing, I call them the silver trinkets, the externals, and without actually understanding that the answer lies within, and the stuff outside will come and it will go, it will come and it will go, and what we are is master observers, but we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
And until we have that understanding or that awareness that we are master observers, even watching ourselves when we get angry, when we get frustrated, sometimes we do things that, you think, did I really react that way? React being the key adjective there. Did I really do that? And that kind of knits in. I think I may have shared this with you before, Halina, when I was in the company, the presence of a very, very high level spiritual, world renowned practitioner, and he was asked the question, do we ever get to a place or a time where we're sorted. Now, what does sorted mean? I think the assumption was that sorted means we're so far up there and spiritual and, enlightened that nothing bothers us. Well, I don't think there's too many of those people that kind of, they're not on every street corner, those kind of really truly enlightened, dare I say, Gandhi-like people. Maybe I'm wrong. Fascinating podcast question. That's another time, another place. But the answer was this, and I thought it was a great answer. And I've latterly summed it up that if we, to go on a journey, it would help if we had a car. And I remember it that way. So what's a car? The C, catch it. So when that anger, that human reaction, frustration, conditioning, call it what you will. When that comes in, hang on, I'm getting angry. Somebody's just cut me up in front of me. It's like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Or, I don't know, ran a trolley over my feet in the supermarket or whatever. These everyday things that affront our ego if we allow ourselves to be caught off guard. Catch it. The A, and R, reflect. Catch and reflect. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time, depending on the situation, to think, okay, do you know what? It's not really worth, nothing ultimately is worth the stress, because, in my humble opinion, Halina, all we are is pure love. Pure love. That's, I use the analogy of a newborn baby coming into the world. He or she has got no condition, he's got no prejudices, he's got no labels, got no nothing other than pure love.
Absolutely.
Those things that we acquire as we go down the path, we learn that habit, that behavior, we learn that stuff. A lot of people stick those labels on us. You are this, you are that. And we embrace those labels because invariably as a child, we pick them up from people that we perceive that they know better, like our parents, our immediate family, our teachers, adults in general. Well, it must be right because, he's a doctor or she's this, or, these people in perceived elevated society. And we carry that conditioning through, don't we? So that catch and review for me is one of the important, I don't know what the word is, tactics, strategies, or ways of bridging that gap between this reality of living in a human world and the even greater reality of what we are, spiritual beings in a human form. Because the human form, like the wind, will pass. Like day and night, this duality that's all around us. Every time we make a word, the shopping bag is heavy. Well, that denotes then that something could be light. It's nighttime. Okay, that denotes that there must be a daytime. So all this kind of duality that exists. But the key thing for me, Halina, in the context of spiritual beings having human experiences, is to have that awareness. We can actually see, we might get caught off guard, and that's fine to a certain degree, so long as we don't let that live there, that anger, that frustration, that judgment. When we get caught off guard, get back to base, get back to spiritual base. Do you agree with that? Do you want to challenge that in any way?
No, I want to expand it. I think I totally agree with you. It is all about awareness, and it is about you could say the passing illusion of duality. The thing that I want to remind myself and everyone about is that it's not a mistake, as I see it. I love the metaphor of life being an adventure or a book or a movie. So when let's just use the metaphor of a book. So when an author writes a book, a really fantastic story where all kinds of things happen and the hero or the heroine move through all kinds of challenges, there's a whole journey that is fascinating and has all kinds of complexities and beauties, and ugly things happen until we're being led to the ultimate end where it all comes together. That book is not a mistake, and the things that happen in the book are not a mistake, and the challenges that take place are not a mistake. It's the journey.
Yeah.
It's the creative experience. And I really, really believe that everything we experience is the, you could say that there is this one united consciousness, and that consciousness is creative, and it dreams dreams, or it writes books, or it creates movies, and that's what our lives are. And I do also, because I've been on this journey for so many years, and I sometimes have been very demanding of myself and very harsh with myself, and I know I'm not the only one. So it's really important to give ourselves a break and be kind with ourselves, and know that whatever we experience, whatever mistakes we seem to make, are still just experiences. They're still here for us to be experienced, then to be aware of, and then as we become aware of it, magic begins to happen, because our awareness expands, and it expands in all directions. So we become more and more aware of who we are as human beings, and who we are as spiritual beings. We start having experiences that we didn't even know that we could have. We can start experiencing life in a way that we didn't even know was possible. And that is the adventure. That is the beauty of it. And then, everything opens, and then we encounter the next challenge, and we maybe fall into, something extremely difficult, and then something new opens. It's an amazing journey. And there is nothing wrong about any of us, as I see it.
And that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Just to pick up, because they are experiences, they're nothing more. And I think, I've kind of deliberately come at this from one angle, Halina, because I'm reflecting the language of people I speak to on the street. I increasingly, the more my awareness is raised around this whole purpose, and I mean purpose, within the in a Dharma sense, not just a word. But one of the things, one of our fellow sisters in our community, Steiner's excellent community, brilliant, beautiful community, challenged me recently, and she said, she was talking about talent and what have you. And it's amazing that within a conversation, how you can become aware of who you, even more, you might think you know who you are, but somebody can just take another plaster off or another label, and it's like, wow. And I've had that breakthrough massively. And I speak in the last couple of weeks, Halina, around something called music. Now, I kind of mentioned that in the context of talent. And I don't know if talent, I certainly don't want to come across as self-praising here, but in terms of talent, what my talent hopefully is to bridge that gap of this immensely powerful spiritual stuff that serves us way beyond we can even imagine, and take that to the streets where there's desperation and darkness and despair. And I need to do that and convey that in a language that people understand. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, it not only makes sense. I have the greatest, respect and admiration for what you're doing. Absolutely. And you could also say, it's one reality and endless perspectives, and we have different ways of communicating, but we have also different purposes and different assignments in life, and we communicate things differently, as we should. So yeah, I have the greatest admiration for it. Absolutely.
Thank you. And within that, Halina, I've been working with a guy called Mark Hoy from Tucson, Arizona. I met Mark through the podcast. He came to me through an agency that I've been fortunate to work with in America, and we just hit it off. And we hit it off because Mark's, if you like, vocation is happiness. And he's advocate that we're just naturally happy. We don't have to go, like all the power that is within us, we don't have to go searching for it. It's there. I think we might have to go on a little bit of a search for, a voyage of discovery, but we haven't got to go external for the silver trinkets, because they'll come and go. It's about bringing it back, isn't it? And I think that's, the work, dare I say, that we do, Halina, is to hold the mirror to people and say, what do you actually see? Because I think as much as we can work on ourselves, and that's, that is part of the process, undoubtedly, but to have that person that believes in you can hold that metaphoric mirror to say, right, what do you see there? Well, I see this, and I see, that self-doubt, that self-loathing, that lack of self-love, respect. That's not what I see. And one of the concepts that we was looking to develop, which I think is a great bridge between this beautiful conversation between spirituality and humanity, Halina, is 3 simple words that, and I go on record as saying, I wish I had a dollar or euro. Every time I'd heard this, every time I put that sort of metaphoric arm around somebody that's really struggling, and that kind of initial, I call it knocking the domino over, knock that first one over, and then hopefully they'll go, why should I bother? Because who really cares? Who really cares? And I think there's a lot of power in just those 3 simple words to say, actually, part of this bridging this gap between humanity or our human side, and obviously I'm putting that in the context and playing a little bit of devil's advocate here of people that are really struggling, and that's higher spiritual, being the higher self, being the best you can be, the first level of Dharma. It's about conveying it in a way that actually, look, as speakers and as authors, yes, we can use fancy words and concepts, but you know what? Let me put my arm around you and let me reassure you that actually somebody does really care. And I think I found that to be very, very powerful in terms of knocking that first domino over. Because then what people tend to embrace, Halina, from my experience, is, wow, well, if he or she cares as a stranger, maybe I need to start caring then. Just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's beautiful. And I also want to kind of transcend it is at the same time, because I have the greatest admiration for your work and what you communicate. And at the same time, I want to remind myself and everyone else is that we communicate with more than words. And there is no greater power than love and joy. And even if we don't speak with people, even if we don't have the same language, we can still connect, and we do connect. And meeting people on the street, even if we don't talk, but meeting them with open hearts and with our love and with our smile and connecting with them, even if without words, makes a difference too. I think we all have had this experience. We've all been down at some point in our life and have this experience that a stranger comes by, or even a child comes by and smiles at us, and they save our day, and sometimes they save our life. I've seen that happen. There is great power in words, and there's also at the same time a great power in love expressed beyond words. And it's such a beautiful thing that we can have both, because we can communicate on many levels, and we need to communicate on many levels.
Absolutely. And for me, the words, and they're critically important, but in terms of, where do they fit? They're just one of the tools, I believe. The actual love and proving the love, that's the next level up. But I feel the ultimate level within, this whole movement, Halina, is the energy. The energy.
And, yes, and the art of it is also, and this is also where the bridging happens, and is that as the bridging happens in us, we can more and more express that energy through our words and through our bodies and through our smiles and through our eyes. So it's not so divided. So the communication can happen on many levels at the same time. Yeah.
I want to dig in, Halina, if I can, we've spoke about awareness, which I think is kind of been a very powerful umbrella for everything we've spoke about up until this point. But I want to sort of fly off at a little bit of a tangent, if I may, and talk around beliefs, what we have as beliefs. Because isn't it true that as humans, our starting point, first and foremost, from an awareness point of view, we're influenced massively by our beliefs, aren't we? Everything that we do, even our ultimate outcomes of what we say, do, and achieve, it starts from our beliefs and our thoughts, our words, our actions, our habits, our values. Everything goes in this mixing bowl that starts with beliefs. So I just kind of throw that in to say, well, as teachers, I'll use the word teachers. I was going to say practitioners, but it's the same thing. No, it isn't, because practitioners tend to be a bit more perceived as a bit more clinical. But let's not get bogged down on words, Paul. As teachers, to what degree, Halina? Well, I ask you as a fellow teacher. As a fellow teacher, how profound do you believe that beliefs are in this bridging process, if we can be allowed to call it that, from spirituality to, from humanity to spirituality, if that's to oversimplify it?
That is a great question. There's no doubt in my mind that they are of great importance. But again, we are a very diverse universe. We are a very diverse humanity. And there are many, many, many approaches, fortunately so, because that means that we can offer very different ways to bridge that gap. And I know that many people work very directly with beliefs, and I respect it greatly. And I actually personally haven't done that much because hasn't been my thing. It's a little bit like, with music and painting or writing, is that it's all creativity, but we have different talents, as you said in the beginning, and different expressions in life. And it has never been like my way personally to go into beliefs and work with them directly. My way has been very much to kind of dissolve them by presenting a higher energy or a higher perspective or a higher clarity. And that works for some people, but not for all people, obviously. And for some people, it is very important to work directly, with the thinking process and with the beliefs, and that works for them. So there are different ways of approaching it. And the beauty of it is that, like they say, all roads lead to Rome, or something like that.
Yeah.
And in a sense, no matter where we start, we will at some point, in a sense, see the same thing. So for example, when you work with energy, even if you don't work with beliefs as such directly, but just work with dissolving through love and through light and through presence, because it leads to greater and greater clarity, at some point you will see, oh, there is a part of me that is hypnotized into this reality. And that's what the belief does, it really. Yeah. There's a part of me that thinks the same thought, and again and again. There's a part of me that tortures itself by believing that thought. So and at that point you don't have to, if you come from like the energy work, then you don't have to like do something about the belief, because the clarity of it will begin to like dissolve it. And the other way around, if you work directly with beliefs and the thinking process, that at some point it will open up and you will see, oh, there is this greater reality, there is this greater clarity. So it's just, again, different ways to go into it, but there is no doubt that it is an essential part of our makeup, you could say.
Yeah, and I see, you know, that those probably they're certainly not polarized, but different approaches. And it doesn't say that one's right or one's wrong. They're different, because from my own perspective with the work I do, and I call it from concrete to consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think it's wrapped up, Halina, in that question: do we need to see to believe, or do we believe to see? Which one is right? Well, neither of them are right, because they're based on beliefs, and beliefs, like the wind, will come and go. What we are is observers, and that's what we teach. That's part of the journey we go on, to observe the things that we do, our human behavior, observe our higher self. But we are observers, because this physical body that we know, it's only a temporary thing. It only holds this energy in a certain form, and as we know, energy can't be destroyed. It merely takes a different form. If you melt an ice cube, it'll go from solid to liquid. To, you know, and we're no different in our human form. I had a fascinating conversation with on a podcast with an American called Mark Gober around his quite controversial book that consciousness lives on after death. Death is just, what's death? You know, that's maybe a step too far for this particular. We're not kind of go off at too much of a tangent, because I want certainly to you know, try and sort of capture this essence, because I know that in the most respectful way, Halina, we kind of, well, you just alluded to it there. We come at this from a different angle, and that's absolutely fine.
It's good. It's good. It's more than fine. It's great, because imagine a world where there would be only one way. Oh my God.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's
absolutely
great. Yes.
And so on the beliefs, I mean, as you say, that's we could be here till this time next year having a conversation about that alone. But I want to, from the ABC approach, and this is me using concrete, simple language as a stepping stone from there to there, or on that path, to hopefully inspire to go on that path. But the C one, Halina, is one that you've used the word quite a few times already, and I love it when I hear the word. It just lights me up. It's creativity. It's that creativity word that, okay, so I don't understand all this, you know, I wish I had a euro for every time I heard this fluffy woo-woo spiritual stuff, Paul, you keep talking about. And what's a guy like you, by the way, doing talking about love? You don't come from that backyard. You don't, that was never who you was, wasn't it really? I think it was. Actually, I didn't know who it was because I was too busy surviving in the human world. But actually, what I know now is I've stripped back the layers and I've been courageous enough to lay myself bare. What I've left with is this understanding, acceptance. It's far more than a belief, far more than a belief. It's a way of being, of who I really am. And do you know what? It's a beautiful place, because had I had that awareness, probably I wouldn't have ended up with pain and suffering and scars all over my body from violence. But you know what? I absolutely embrace every single one of those experiences, because they've contributed to who I am and what I am. And that's a journey of discovery that unfolds for us each and every day as our awareness increases. So I absolutely love that way. For creativity, Halina, brackets, different way of being.
Yes. Oh, this is also one of my favorite words. Creativity has been like so important in my life, and I love that you bring it in, because you know, when I started on my human journey very early, I wanted to play music, and I started to play music, and And my music evolved as I evolved. So in the beginning, I used it to just express emotions because there was so much pain. And at some point, I started using it to get in touch with my spirituality, actually. And the more I played, the more it opened. Then I stopped playing music and I started writing, and the same process continued. But there's something absolutely magical about creativity, and it is something that we all can access. And the thing is that when we allow it to flow, when we allow ourselves to just write, like just write whatever comes to mind, or draw, or paint, or play, or sing, whatever comes to mind, energy begins to flow. And when energy begins to flow, then energy does what energy has to do. It begins to transform. And it brings us something new is being created. And this is something that's accessible to most people, if not all people. And that means that without being, without sitting and meditating and reading clever books and accessing, great retreats, if this is not your thing, what we all can do is, when faced with challenge, use creativity to approach it, write about it, paint it, play it, sing it, talk it, just keep expressing it. And that will start a creative flow, and that will support a transformation, and that can actually bring a human being all the way from, as you said, concrete to consciousness. It's an amazing power that we all have. So thank you for bringing it in, Paul.
Absolutely. And one of the other very, very powerful tools, Halina, I believe anyway, is the use of metaphors in language, how we can link this way, a certain way or a certain situation, and by using metaphors. And we've used quite a few in our conversation already, starting off with the flowers and the weeds. And I like the way you subtly challenged me about the weeds, because I did throw that in deliberately. And I thought, I want you to challenge me, you did. So, yeah. But the use of metaphors in our, it's not, is it too kind of strong to call it storytelling, the way we relate, the way we communicate, the way we unfold our words, this creative way of being, but certainly metaphoric language. Halina, what's your thoughts around sort of metaphors?
Well, I think it's very, very powerful. My first thought is, well, this is what all great teachers have been using. Jesus, Buddha, and all the others that I know very little about, but what I do know, Lao Tse, they didn't write complicated works. They used simple stories that people could relate to. That's one part of it. But the other part of it is that no matter how deep buried we are in the concrete, we are still the divine consciousness.
Yeah.
And that means that in us, we may not be in touch with it because we are so, the concrete is so heavy and we're so much asleep at times that we may not be aware of it. But that spirituality, that infinite consciousness is actually within us. And what happens when we start telling stories, or when we hear or create metaphors, is that we consciously and unconsciously connect with the deeper wisdom within us. It's never coincidentally what metaphor comes up. So it is our way of getting in touch with the stories and the wisdom and the knowing that lives somewhere within us, just like our dreams bring that awareness to us without us kind of knowing it. Metaphors do the same. So it's an amazing and beautiful and powerful way to connect with who we are, and to gain a deep understanding of what is going on in our lives and how we can move on.
Absolutely. I'd like to share another metaphor, if I may, Halina, but just before I do that, you've mentioned that too there, and his Tao Te Ching. And when you look at something that is 2,500 years old now, and listen to the power and the simplicity of those lessons, it's the test of time for 2,500 years. And it could have been written by somebody last week, because it's so simple. It's distilled brilliance, isn't it?
Yes.
It really is, for people, and I've of the 81 verses, if I get in company, I'll say, okay, so I carry it on my phone and I'll scroll down and I'll just go, and I'll stop one randomly. Okay, let's play this because, I don't know, I listened to Wayne Dyer's version and interpretation. 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever. And no matter what he's talking about, Halina, it's like, how can you deny that then? You tell me about your concrete world. You don't believe in spiritual. You argue against that then. And, whatever it could be, I don't deliberately single one of the 81 out that I think, nobody can argue with that. You pick one then. Flip down the list and you pick one. We'll listen to it for 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever, and then tell me about your thoughts. And, these are just little stepping stones, aren't they, to making that sort of transition, that transformation from concrete to consciousness. So
exactly. And again, this is the thing with energy, that the energy, the wisdom that is behind comes with the words. It's not just words and it's not just stories. There's an energy that comes with them. And when we meet it, we react so deeply because we resonate, we recognize it as the truth.
In terms of being in the human field, Halina, I often use the metaphor of if we imagine ourselves in a helicopter in a field, and what we focus on is one blade of grass. So here we are sitting in this helicopter, and we're looking at one particular blade of grass because that's our blade of grass. Nobody in this world's got a blade of grass like that because that's mine. You don't understand, Halina, the problems I've got. Look, it's there, it's that. You couldn't possibly understand about that blade of grass, or anybody else for that matter. You couldn't, because nobody did. Lots of people have tried to tell me, but no. So, okay, fine. You keep focused on that blade of grass then. You keep your mind really sharply focused on that despair and desperation that goes with that one blade of grass, because that's your belief system, that's your focus. Just be careful what you focus on. Right, then what we're going to do, we're going to ask the pilot to turn on the engine. All of a sudden, the rotors start going round, and then we get this wave of energy over the field. Where's that blade of grass now? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, let's take this a stage further, shall we? Pilot, take us on. Elevators. Now what you're seeing? Where's your blade of grass now? Not only is this energy just basically blowing it all over the place, that grass, you're not seeing any individual blades of grass now. You're not even seeing waves of energy. They're still there, but you're not seeing them. What you're seeing is this green patch below. And the more you escalate and escalate and escalate, the smaller that green patch becomes. But that blade of grass is still there. That wave of energy is still there, just because you can't see it. So the moral of this story for me, Halina, is this, and the metaphor. If there's something that's causing you pain in your concrete world, maybe, just maybe, you need to go into another field. And if you don't like actually that field, go into another field. And if you don't like the country that field's in, well, go to another country. And if you don't like the part of the world that you're in, maybe you need to go into another world. And for me, that's called spirituality.
Wow, that is powerful, Paul. Wow.
So next time you fly, Halina, I would like to think that your flight will never quite be the same.
Oh.
That's the power of metaphors, isn't it, in our language?
It is, it's beautiful. That was really sweet. I love it.
Thank you. Right, Halina, we're coming to that time. And because we've done an episode before, and we've spoken obviously off air about our journeys. So I always ask guests this one massive question at the end, and it's almost like the elevator pitch of you've got 15 seconds. We're in a lift, and I ask you this question. You've got 15 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever it is, to give an answer. No more. if you had one powerful message, just one, and I know you've got many, but one, what would that be to leave to the world in the context of this spiritual beings having human challenges? What would that be, Halina?
That would be, find your joy and start with something very small. Start just with something that brings you joy. Then expand it, and you will find out that it will heal your pain. And then expand it, and you will find out that this is who you are. This is your soul. Your soul is joy. So start with joy in the smallest version you can, and then continue going deeper and wider into it.
And to take that back to the metaphor about the flowers in the flower bed in the garden, just, you know, what you're saying there, if I'm hearing you correctly, is we're planting a very simple seed, maybe from dark soil called past, but watch it grow. I love it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Listen, how can people find out more about you, the work you do? What's your contact details? They'll be in the show notes anyway, but for the perspective of the listeners, can you share those with us?
Absolutely, been my pleasure. So my work, which is called Awakening to Joyful Living, can be found at halinagold.com. So HALINAGOLD.com.
Right.
And if you go to something that's called halinagold.com and then /CSEE, then you will find a free course that is very simple and very helpful in addressing those beliefs and those experiences that we have trouble dealing with, and can take you all the way from the little joy to the big joy, and the pain to the more awakened and happy living.
Superb. So final word, well, I'm going to say thank you to the listeners, because I want you to have the last word, Halina, but I'm going to say, I'm going to sign off with the listeners to say, as ever, sincere gratitude for being part of this fascinating conversation between Halina and myself. On a personal level, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been enlightening, to say the least. So thank you, listeners, for being part of that journey. And all that remains now, Halina, the last word to you as the guest. Anything at all that you want to say about anything?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Paul, for creating what you create and bringing all your love and all your insight and all your beautiful purpose into it. And I do want to thank each and every listener also. You are an absolute miracle. You have no idea how beautiful you are. So there is nothing wrong with you. Just be you more and more and more and more. And it's such a gift that you are in the world. Please remember that. And I love you.
Wow.